My daughter told me my wife was cheating on me, and I laughed in her face until she showed me the proof that burned my world down. I can still hear it, her voice trembling, desperate, breaking apart like drywood under pressure. Dad, I need to tell you something about Mom. I remember thinking it was going to be another one of those silly mother-daughter spats, some overblown argument about clothes or curfews. I didn't even stop stirring my coffee. I smiled at her, told her to get some sleep, that everything would look better in the morning. She flinched like I'd hit her. Then she dropped her phone on the table. The screen still lit up. My wife's face frozen in a kiss with another man. I blinked once. Twice. The room felt too small, the walls creeping closer. I could barely breathe. My daughter's hand reached for me, her mouth opening and closing like she had more to say, but the damage was already done. The only sound left in the room was the slow ticking of the clock on the wall, counting down the last seconds of my old life. It started 2 months before that night, the night my daughter turned my whole world to ash. Julie had been different. Colder. She used to hum when she cooked, tapping spoons against bowls and little chaotic rhythms that made the kitchen feel alive. She stopped humming. She stopped laughing at the stupid sitcoms we used to watch after dinner. She started spending more time at the gym, even though I never saw any changes. No new muscles, no new routines. Just excuses. Long showers. Secret smiles when she thought no one was looking. There was one night that sticks out. I came home from work a little early, the sunset leaking blood orange light into the house. I heard her on the phone before I even got through the door. Her voice was soft, sweet, almost girlish. I couldn't hear the words. Just the sound of it, lilting and low. Not the way she spoke to me anymore. When I pushed open the door, she jumped like she'd been caught shoplifting. Slammed her phone face down on the counter and greeted me with a fake smile. "How was your day?" she chirped, her voice an octave too high. Something inside me twitched. I told myself it was nothing. Stress. The long hours. I kissed her cheek and went to change out of my uniform. I didn't even ask who she was talking to. I should have asked. Instead, I spent that night trying to ignore how her body stiffened when I touched her under the sheets. How she rolled away and pretended to be asleep before I even turned off the light. The next week, I found her sitting in the car in the driveway after a late shift at work. She didn't see me watching through the blinds. She wasn't doing anything, just sitting there, staring at the steering wheel, her phone clutched tight in her lap. 10 minutes. 15. I finally opened the door and waved at her. She jerked like she'd been shocked and scrambled out of the car, babbling some excuse about a rough day at work. I wrapped my arms around her. She felt rigid, like a dead thing pretending to be alive. I told myself she just needed time. We all go through slumps. We all have bad months. I didn't want to be the kind of man who suspected his wife every time she sighed too hard. I didn't want to become a bitter, paranoid fool peeking through windows and rifling through purses. But that voice in my head, the one that sounded a lot like my late father, said one word loud and clear: watch. Little things kept piling up. She started locking her phone. No big deal, right? Privacy. Security. But she used to leave it on the nightstand, buzzing with texts from the girls or reminders for dentist appointments. Now it was glued to her hand. Even when she was in the bathroom, the phone went with her. Once, while she was cooking dinner, a message flashed across her screen. I caught just a glimpse. A string of hearts. No name. No contact picture. When she saw me looking, she slammed the phone face down and smiled at me. Too fast. Too bright. I smiled back. I didn't say a word. 2 weeks later, she started working late, every Thursday. Always Thursdays. Always coming home tired, smelling of cheap perfume that wasn't hers. I told myself she was probably just hanging out with her coworkers, blowing off steam. Still, I stayed up for her. Sat in the dark, pretending to watch TV, listening for the sound of her car pulling into the driveway. Sometimes she'd come in humming again, different songs now, slow and syrupy. It sounded like guilt trying to disguise itself as happiness. The worst part? I still wanted to believe her. Every time I caught her texting under the table. Every time she lied about why she couldn't make it to family dinners. Every time she laughed too hard at her phone and wiped the smile away when I walked into the room. I kept telling myself it was a rough patch. Everyone had rough patches. She was my wife, the mother of my children, my partner in this brutal, beautiful life we had built from scratch. I wanted so badly to be wrong. I needed to be wrong. But the doubt seeped into everything. It poisoned my mornings. My coffee tasted like regret. The drive to work stretched out into an endless loop of awful possibilities. By the time I pulled into the parking lot each day, I felt hollowed out, like a man pretending to be alive. At night, I would stare at the ceiling, counting the seconds between her fake breaths, those deep, theatrical sighs she used to signal she was fast asleep when she didn't want to talk. I knew the woman lying beside me was hiding something. I just didn't know yet how deep the knife had been buried. I didn't want to become the guy who checks his wife's location like a prison guard, but the fear was a virus crawling up my spine. Thursday nights became a ritual of silent torture. I would sit on the couch, pretending to read the news, pretending not to hear the lies slipping off her tongue when she called to say she was wrapping up or grabbing a quick drink with the girls. Sometimes, she wouldn't even bother to call at all. She would just show up, late, eyes glassy, cheeks flushed, the kind of glow no overtime shift at a marketing office could ever cause. I started noticing things. She stopped wearing her wedding ring sometimes. Said it was because her fingers swelled at the gym. Said it was because she was cleaning. Said it was because she forgot. I wanted to believe every excuse she fed me. I wanted to believe it so badly that I lied to myself harder than she ever did. The first real crack in the dam came one night when she came home smelling like a stranger. Not just perfume, something else. Sharp, musky. Male. I stood in the kitchen as she kissed me on the cheek, her lips barely brushing my skin. The scent hit me like a punch. I stepped back, staring at her, but she was already tossing her purse on the counter, her keys jangling like nothing was wrong. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but all that came out was a broken cough. Rough night? She asked sweetly, pulling leftovers from the fridge like it was any other Tuesday. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the table and demand the truth. Instead, I smiled, nodded, ate my cold spaghetti while she sat across from me scrolling through her phone, her thumb moving in quick, secretive flicks. I kept telling myself I was imagining things. That work stress was making me paranoid. That middle age was making me insecure. But late at night, when she was curled up in a ball of fake sleep, I would watch her and wonder who she was dreaming about. It wasn't me. It hadn't been for a long time. Arguments started happening over nothing. A plate left out on the counter. A forgotten grocery run. A stupid joke I made that she would have laughed at 6 months ago, but now made her eyes flash with cold, bright anger. It always ended the same way. She would storm out of the room, slam the door, come back 20 minutes later with dead eyes and a fake apology. We'd sleep back to back, miles apart in the same bed. One night after a fight, she didn't even come home. No call, no text, nothing. I sat up all night, heart racing, telling myself she must have crashed at a friend's place or maybe fallen asleep at the office. At 5:34 a.m., the front door creaked open. She stumbled inside smelling like beer and cigarette smoke, and something sour underneath it all. I didn't ask where she'd been. I didn't want to hear another lie. Even the kids started to notice. Maddie, our younger daughter, started picking fights with her mom. Small things at first, rolling her eyes when Julie told her to clean her room, snapping at her for stupid teenage stuff. But the air between them got heavy, like something rotten and invisible was growing in the house. Once, after a shouting match about curfews, I heard Maddie mutter under her breath, "Why don't you just go back to him if you love him so much?" Julie slapped her, right across the face. Silence fell over the house like a dropped bomb. Julie gasped like she couldn't believe she'd done it. Maddie stared at her with something I had never seen before, pure, bitter hatred. That night, I found Maddie crying in her room, her door locked. When I knocked and asked if she was okay, she just screamed at me to leave her alone. I should have gone in anyway. I should have forced her to tell me right then. But I didn't. I sat outside her door with my head in my hands and told myself it was just teenage drama. Julie started making plans without me. Brunches, dinners, weekend trips with the girls where I was never invited. Our family group texts turned into a ghost town. Maddie stopped responding altogether. Alice, our older daughter, sent clipped, polite replies that felt like customer service emails instead of real conversations. When I mentioned that maybe we should all have a family dinner, Julie shrugged it off. "Everyone's busy, babe," she said, scrolling her phone with dead eyes. "Don't make a big deal out of it." A big deal. That's what I was now, an inconvenience. A speed bump between her and whatever secret life she was building. One night, I finally snapped. We were sitting in the living room, the TV flickering shadows across the walls. She was on her phone again, smiling at the screen like she was reading love notes. "Who are you texting?" I asked. Her eyes didn't even lift from the screen. Just Alice. She's planning a girls' night with Maddie. Funny, I said. Maddie's been locked in her room for hours. That got her attention. She looked up, blinking too fast. It's a surprise, she said weakly. They're planning something for me. For my birthday. Her birthday was 5 months away. I didn't call her out on it. I just nodded, swallowed the bile rising in my throat, pretended, again, that I didn't see the truth unraveling right in front of me. The worst part wasn't the lies. It wasn't even the way she looked at me, like a charity case she was forced to take care of out of guilt. The worst part was the way I looked at myself. Every morning in the mirror, I saw a man shrinking, a man bleeding out one slow drop at a time, a man too weak to fight for the truth, too cowardly to demand answers. I hated that man. I hated that he still loved her. The descent was slow, quiet, death by 1,000 tiny cuts. Every missed call, every secret smile, every Thursday night, she came home smelling like a stranger. I didn't confront her. I didn't chase her. I waited. Because deep down, I knew something bigger was coming. Something that would shatter the last fragile pieces of our broken life. And when it came, it wouldn't be her that pulled the trigger. It would be Maddie, my baby girl. The one person left in this world who still loved me enough to tell me the truth. The first real war between us started on a Sunday morning, and like most disasters, it began with something small. Julie had started going to church again, or so she said. Every Sunday, she would wake up early, dress in her best, tight skirts, bright lipstick, the kind of perfume you could smell from a room away, and head out without breakfast. She used to nudge me awake, tease me until I went with her, both of us bleary-eyed but laughing. Now she barely looked at me as she slipped out the door. This Sunday was no different. Except, by noon, she still wasn't home. No call, no text. When she finally stumbled in, around 2, I caught the flash of panic in her eyes before she forced a smile. I stood in the hallway, arms crossed. Good sermon? She tossed her purse onto the couch. It ran late. 2 hours late. She shrugged like it was nothing. We had a meeting after. Potluck planning. You know how it is. I didn't know how it was. I hadn't seen the inside of that church in months. I called Pastor Riley. I said, my voice low. Her face went dead pale. Asked if you were still around. I continued. He said you weren't at service this morning. A crack appeared in her mask. A flicker of something ugly in her eyes. I went to a different church, she snapped. With a friend. Which friend? I asked softly. She hesitated. Just a second too long. You don't know her, she said. It was a weak lie, the kind a teenager tells when they're caught sneaking out after curfew. And I stood there like a fool, letting her twist the knife. That afternoon, the house turned colder than December wind. She didn't talk to me, barely even looked at me. When Maddie came down for dinner, Julie's eyes flicked over her like she was some unwanted guest. Alice didn't even bother showing up. Probably busy again. The table was silent except for the clinking of silverware. Halfway through the meal, Maddie dropped her fork and stood up. I'm not hungry, she mumbled, and disappeared upstairs. Julie sighed dramatically. She's been so moody lately. I bit down so hard on my tongue I tasted blood. Later that night, I found Maddie sitting on the floor of her room, hugging her knees to her chest. Her phone was lying beside her, screen cracked down the middle, like she'd thrown it, or someone had ripped it from her hands. Everything okay, kiddo? I asked. She didn't look up, just nodded stiffly. You know you can tell me anything, right? Another nod. Mechanical. Dead. I knelt down beside her, lowering my voice. Is this about Mom? That broke her. Her whole body shuddered once, violently. But still, no words. Just that haunted look in her eyes. I wanted to shake the truth out of her, to force it into the light. But something told me it wasn't time yet. Not yet. The arguments with Julie got worse after that. Explosive, ugly, pointless. Once, I asked her why she wasn't wearing her wedding ring anymore. She screamed at me, actually screamed, that I was controlling, paranoid, suffocating her. I hadn't raised my voice. Hadn't even frowned. She stormed out of the house, tires screeching down the driveway, and didn't come back until midnight. I didn't wait up. I didn't ask where she'd been. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the rot spread through every inch of me. It wasn't just her lies anymore. It was the way she looked at me. Like I was a stranger who had overstayed his welcome. Like she was counting down the days until she could escape. She didn't touch me. Didn't laugh at my jokes. Didn't even fight with the same fire she used to. Now every argument ended with a shrug, a roll of the eyes, or worst of all, silence. She had already left me. She just hadn't packed her bags yet. Thursday nights twisted into something new. She stopped giving excuses. Stopped pretending she had work dinners or gym sessions or Bible study groups. Now she just left. No explanations. No warnings. And I let her. Because some small, pitiful part of me still clung to the idea that maybe, somehow, she wasn't doing what I knew in my gut she was doing. Maybe she was just unhappy. Maybe she needed space. Maybe. Every lie I told myself tasted more sour than the last. One night, after another silent Thursday dinner alone, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her nightstand. Her phone was there, unlocked, a tiny green light blinking at me, a message waiting. I didn't touch it, didn't even lean closer. I just sat there, heart hammering against my ribs, sweat beating down my back. I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to be the pathetic husband who snooped through his wife's messages like a petty, desperate fool. But God help me, I wanted the truth. More than I wanted to breathe. Maddie noticed before I did that something had changed. She started giving me long, searching looks. Like she was waiting for me to wake up. To fight back. I caught her one night, standing outside our bedroom door, listening. She didn't even pretend to be ashamed. She just stared at me with wide, tear-bright eyes and whispered, "Dad, I'm so sorry." Sorry for what? For what she knew. For what she was about to tell me. For what she thought I already understood but refused to admit. I didn't ask. I couldn't. If I heard the truth from her mouth, there would be no going back. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. Julie had another late meeting. She texted once, around 6 p.m., "Don't wait up. Long night ahead." That was it. No kisses. No, "love you." No promises to come home. Just cold, clinical dismissal. I sat at the kitchen table, beer going warm in my hand, staring at the empty chair across from me. The clock on the wall ticked louder and louder. At some point, I realized Maddie was sitting across from me. Her hair was wet from the shower, curling at the ends. She wore an old hoodie that swallowed her whole. She looked younger than her years. Fragile. "She's not coming home," Maddie said quietly. I nodded. "I know." Silence stretched between us, heavy and choking. Finally, Maddie said, "You need to open your eyes, Dad." I closed mine instead. Because I knew once I opened them, really opened them, I wouldn't recognize the world I saw. The next morning, Julie came home looking like hell. Her makeup smeared. Her clothes wrinkled. She smelled like a man's cologne. She didn't even bother to hide it anymore. She just stomped upstairs, slammed the bathroom door, and locked it. I sat at the kitchen table, hands curled into fists, knuckles white. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't crazy. She was gone. Julie, the woman I married, the woman I built a life with, was gone. And in her place was something cruel, hollow, and vicious, wearing her skin. And still, I hadn't heard it from her lips. I hadn't seen it with my own eyes. I hadn't found the final, brutal, undeniable proof. But it was coming. I could feel it. The truth was circling closer and closer, a shark smelling blood. And when it finally tore its way to the surface, it wasn't going to be Julie who exposed herself. It was going to be my daughter, my little girl, the only soul left brave enough to drag the corpse of our family into the light. I started sleeping with one eye open. Julie would lie beside me, her breathing slow and even, as if the whole world hadn't cracked apart under our roof. I'd stare at the ceiling fan spinning slow, lazy circles above our bed and wonder if this was what dying felt like. The long, slow rot of waiting for a truth you already knew but couldn't yet prove. Some nights I'd reach for her in my sleep without meaning to. My fingers would brush her shoulder, and she'd flinch away like I was poison. She thought I didn't notice. But I did. I noticed everything now. The first time I opened her laptop while she was in the shower, my hand shook so bad I could barely control the touchpad. She didn't use it much anymore. Her phone was her real lifeline. Still, I thought maybe there'd be something there. A message. A clue. Nothing. Just work emails, online shopping receipts, a few spreadsheets she didn't bother to hide. I closed the laptop gently, slid it back exactly where I found it, and sat back on the bed feeling like the world's biggest fool. Maybe it was all in my head. Maybe I was losing it. Maybe I was the problem. The worst part wasn't that I didn't trust her. It was that I didn't trust myself anymore. Her routines changed. She stopped asking me about my day. Stopped touching me altogether. Stopped looking me in the eyes unless she had to. When I kissed her goodbye one morning before work, she turned her face just enough that my lips brushed her hair instead of her cheek. I laughed it off like it was funny. like it didn't gut me. The girls started acting differently too. Alice became distant, politely avoiding dinners, missing calls, sending stiff texts full of emojis that felt like knives. Maddie stayed close, but there was a weight on her, like she was carrying a secret too big for her small frame to hold. One night after Julie had left for a meeting, Maddie sat on the back porch with me, her arms wrapped around her knees. She didn't say much. Neither did I. Words were useless now. They only scratched the surface of the sickness growing inside our house. When I finally spoke, I said, "Are you okay?" She nodded. A lie. But I let her have it. Some lies are kindness. Some truths kill. Thursday nights became a ritual. Julie would dress up in outfits I hadn't seen before, new blouses, high heels that clicked sharp against the hardwood floor, and vanish into the night. She always had an excuse. Happy hour. Team building event. Late client dinner. I started writing them down. Dates, times, excuses. Like a detective building a case no one would ever see. I didn't ask questions anymore. I didn't accuse. I smiled, kissed her on the forehead, waved her off like the good little fool she wanted me to be. Because if I pushed too soon, if I accused without proof, she'd just twist it back on me. And part of me, the broken, desperate part, still needed her lies to be true. I installed a second app on my phone that let me clone hers when we were on the same Wi-Fi. I told myself I wouldn't check it, that it was just in case. That lasted all of 5 minutes. What I found wasn't proof, just more shadows, deleted texts, empty call logs, gaps in her GPS data. Her WhatsApp was empty, like she had just downloaded it. Telegram, the same. Instagram DMs, clean as bleach. It wasn't evidence, but it was enough. People who have nothing to hide don't wipe themselves off the map. One night, I caught her smiling at her phone in bed. Not laughing, not reading, smiling. That soft, private smile I hadn't seen aimed at me in months. Something funny? I asked, keeping my voice light. She jumped like she forgot I was even there. Just a meme from Alice, she said quickly, tucking the phone under her pillow like a teenager caught texting after curfew. Alice. Right. I went for a drive that night, long after she'd fallen asleep. Just me, the empty roads, and the sick pounding of my heart in my ears. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't have a plan. I just needed to move, to breathe, to do something besides drown in this house built on rotting trust. I ended up parked outside the strip mall where I'd followed her once before. Just sitting there in the dark, staring at the parking lot, waiting for nothing. Waiting for the courage to face what I already knew. It didn't come. It never did. The fights got worse. Stupid things. I loaded the dishwasher wrong. I forgot to pick up milk. I breathed too loud when she was trying to work. Every conversation was a minefield. Every touch was a threat. We argued about nothing until our voices cracked and broke, until she would storm upstairs and slam the door like a petulant teenager. I didn't follow. I didn't beg. I let the door stay closed, because I knew what was really on the other side. Not a woman. Not my wife. Just a stranger wearing her skin. One Sunday morning, she didn't bother pretending anymore. I'm going out, she said, grabbing her keys. Where to? I asked casually, just to see what she'd say. She hesitated a half-second too long. Meeting with Alice. At 8 a.m.? Brunch plans. We're catching up. You know how it is. She smiled too wide, teeth too white, eyes too cold. I smiled back. Have fun. I watched her leave, the door swinging shut behind her like the final beat of a funeral drum. Then I sat there in the silence, listening to the clock ticking. Each second another nail hammered into the coffin of our life together. Maddie found me later, sitting on the back steps with my head in my hands. She didn't say anything, just sat beside me, bumping her shoulder lightly against mine like when she was little and didn't know how to say she was sorry. We stayed like that for a long time, two broken things leaning against each other. Finally, she whispered, "You deserve better." I didn't answer, because deep down, I wasn't sure I did. The days blurred together after that. Julie would leave. Julie would come home. Julie would lie. And I would nod and smile and die a little more each time. I started thinking of the betrayal like a storm. Distant thunder rolling across a dark sky. Still far enough that you could pretend it wasn't coming. But you could smell the rain already. You could feel the air crackling, thick and mean. The kind of storm that doesn't just soak the ground. The kind that tears houses apart. The kind that leaves nothing standing. I didn't know exactly when it would hit. Didn't know which night, or which lie, or which crack in her perfect mask would finally break wide open. But I knew it was close. I could feel it in my bones. I could taste it in the back of my throat. And when it finally came, I was going to be ready. No tears, no begging, no mercy, only fire. It happened on a Thursday. Of course it was Thursday, the sacred day of lies. Julie got dressed early in her favorite black dress, the one she used to wear on our anniversaries when she still loved me. She checked herself twice in the mirror, smoothing imaginary wrinkles, brushing non-existent lint from her shoulders. I sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee that tasted like dirt. "Big meeting?" I asked, voice flat. She smiled. "Tight. Plastic. Team dinner. Probably late." I nodded like the good little fool she thought I was. She kissed the top of my head like I was a dog and left without another word. The door clicked shut, and that's when Maddie appeared, her face pale, her hands shaking. "It's tonight," she said. I didn't move, didn't blink. "Are you sure?" I asked. She nodded, tears pooling in her eyes. "I saw the texts," she whispered. "It's him. It's been him the whole time." She slid her cracked phone across the table. I looked down, and there it was. Photos, screenshots, messages. My wife, my partner, my supposed soulmate, sprawled across hotel beds, kissing a man I knew, her boss. Holding hands at bars, wrapped around him like a snake. Plans made. Lies told. Love declared. Not mistakes. Not accidents. Not a one-time slip. A second life. A second husband. Built right under my nose. The room didn't spin. The floor didn't fall out from under me. No drama. No collapse. Just a cold, white-hot clarity slicing through me like a blade. I stood up. I kissed Maddie on the forehead. "Stay here," I said. And I walked out the door. I knew exactly where to go. Maddie had sent the address without even asking if I wanted it. They weren't meeting at a hotel. Not tonight. Tonight they were celebrating at his place. A cozy little suburban house 2 towns over. White fence. American flag. 2 cars in the driveway. Perfect. It took me 18 minutes to get there. Every second ticking louder and louder in my skull. I didn't call her. I didn't rage or cry or plead. I just parked across the street and watched. The lights were on. Silhouettes moved behind the curtains, 2 bodies close together, laughing, touching. It was almost funny. After 30 years, she didn't even bother hiding anymore. I walked straight up to the door and rang the bell. 3 short bursts. Businesslike. No hiding in the shadows. No playing games. The door opened. And there she was. Julie. Her face froze mid-laugh, the wine glass tipping dangerously in her hand. She wore the black dress. She wore the necklace I had bought her for our 20th anniversary. She wore the smile she used to save only for me. And behind her, looming like a vulture, was David, her boss, smug and lazy-eyed, the kind of man who thought screwing another man's wife was a trophy. "Hey, buddy," he said stupidly, like we were old friends meeting at a barbecue. Julie's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Just a breathless, broken gasp. I smiled. Calm. Almost gentle. "I just wanted to drop something off," I said. I pulled the manila folder from under my jacket and handed it to her. Receipts. Printouts. Photos. A neat little package of their filth. She took it with trembling hands, flipping it open. First page, her kissing David outside a bar 3 months ago. Second page, hotel charges on her shared credit card. Third page, a receipt for a diamond necklace, not the one she wore for me, but a new one, hidden somewhere, waiting for the life she was building with him. Her face crumpled like a paper cup. David leaned over her shoulder, squinting. "Jesus," he muttered, still trying to process. Still too stupid to realize the grenade I had just dropped into their little love nest. Julie looked up at me, eyes wide, mascara already smudging. "I can explain," she started. I laughed in her face. Not bitter. Not broken. Just pure, razor-edged amusement. "You already did," I said. I turned on my heel and walked back down the driveway. But I wasn't done. Not even close. I got in my truck and pulled out my phone. Opened the family group chat, the one we used for birthdays, holidays, Sunday dinners. And I dropped everything in it. Every photo. Every receipt. Every dirty message. No captions. No explanations. Just the truth. Cold and naked. A minute later, Maddie texted. "Det, you sure?" I replied. They deserved to see it. And I hit send. To everyone. Both daughters. Both sides of the family. Every friend we had in common. Every neighbor. Her coworkers. David's wife. Oh, yes, David's wife. She got the full package too. Because no one was walking away clean from this. I didn't go home. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't run. I went straight to the best divorce lawyer in the city, the one I'd already met secretly a week ago when the shadows first started pulling at my gut. Signed the papers. Filed the motions. Locked it all down. The house. The cars. The accounts. She wouldn't see a penny without a war. By the time Julie stumbled home at 2 a.m., sobbing and begging outside the front door, the locks were already changed. The porch light was off. And Maddie and I were gone. She called 34 times. She left voicemails, texts, emails, promises, threats, bargains. I listened to none of it. She didn't deserve my anger. She didn't deserve my sadness. She didn't deserve anything, not even my hate. She deserved silence. And that's exactly what I gave her. A week later, she tried to show up at my brother's house, where I was staying, begging for a second chance, begging to explain, begging to rewrite history. My brother opened the door, looked her dead in the eyes, and shut it without a word. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. They're wrong. Revenge is a wildfire. It's hot and fast and merciless. It burns everything, especially the liar who thought they could dance through life without consequences. Julie didn't lose me. She lost everything. Her marriage, her family, her dignity, her future. And she would spend the rest of her pathetic life picking up the ashes with bloodied hands, wondering how it had all slipped away. I didn't forgive her. I didn't forget. I didn't move on. I buried her memory under the rubble she created and walked away without a backward glance. Because some things are too broken to fix. Some betrayals too deep to heal. And some wars are only won when you leave nothing standing. Nothing at all. Subscribe to hear more stories.